Girl who made my life a living hell is dead. At her funeral, I cried until I could barely breathe. A performance worthy of an Oscar. A cop walked past me, his voice low and rough. Cut the crap, kid. I pointed across the street, at the tallest building on the Oak Creek High campus, and smiled through my tears. Officer Miller, the abuser, just paid for your daughter's life with her own same exact death. Doesn't that make you feel good? Chloe Dean fell from the 14th floor of the main academic building. The railing was old, rusted out. She just flipped. An unfortunate accident. Because she was a vice principal's daughter. The whole school went into mourning. Our homeroom teacher practically forced us to chip in cash, calling it a donation. Bullshit. The funeral was held at the Grand Hotel across the street. A massive black and white portrait dominated the hall. Students stood with their heads bowed performing this massive, ridiculous send-off. It was laughable. I stared at that photo. I suddenly thought, Chloe actually looked decent when she was framed in black and white. When the service ended, Vice Principal Dean didn't even let us eat. He ranted about how we were seniors, how we needed to focus on getting into the Ivies, and kicked us out. I glanced back at the photo one last time. Strangely, a tear actually rolled down my cheek. Shadow loomed next to me. A deep, exhausted voice cut the crap. I looked up, police uniform. Officer Miller looked different from the last time I saw him. More gray hair, deeper lines of exhaustion etched into his forehead. His eyes were dark, fixed on the photo. God knows what he was thinking. I curled my lips into a faint smile, tugged on his sleeve, and pointed to the roof across the street. Sarah fell from that exact same spot. His body went rigid. He looked up. Officer, the bully died the same way your daughter did. Don't you feel a little vindicated? The funeral was over. Walking back to the academic building with the herd, I stopped and looked up at the roof. Sun was blinding. The stream of people passing me felt like a scene from a movie. Sarah died at the start of senior year. Chloe and her bitchy crew cornered her on the roof, beat the shit out of her, and then she fell. I remember it clearly. She landed right in front of me, exploding into a flower of blood. Later, after the sirens wailed and faded, the school released their statement. No one had been on the roof. Sarah was stressed about finals and college apps. She jumped suicide. Bullshit. In that split second, I swear I locked eyes with Chloe, looking down from the ledge, and Sarah. Sarah was brilliant. She could have walked into Harvard or Yale blindfolded. Officer Miller went crazy looking for evidence. There were no cameras on the roof. The witnesses all had the same rehearsed story. And the school paid out a settlement to hush it up. My original statement buried deep in some dusty police file. What are you thinking about? A shadow fell over me. I blinked. Shaking off the image, it was Caleb, the school's golden boy, the genius heartthrob, falling from the 14th floor. Must hurt like hell, I said. He pushed up his glasses. Don't dwell on it. We have exams coming up. Too bad, I probably won't make it to graduation. What do you mean? I looked over at Vice Principal Dean, and the stranger cop standing next to him. Because someone isn't going to let me go. Principal Dean brought out the evidence. Chloe's phone. The day before she splattered on the pavement, she sent me a text, Maya. Tomorrow at 9 a.m. Ruth.
Come alone.
The air in the interrogation room was stale. The fluorescent light buzzed, stinging my eyes. The stranger cop was Detective Ray. Probably some hot shot. Dean called in from the State Department as a favor. Detective Ray and Officer Miller were questioning me. Maya, explain this text. I narrowed my eyes at Ray. Officer, I skipped a grade. So?
I'm 17.
I'm a minor. You can't grill me without a guardian. Ray's fist clenched and unclenched. Stormed out to call my parents. Miller looked at me, then at the camera, said nothing and followed him. The camera recorded everything. I stretched, put my head on the table, and took a nap. In my dream, I saw Sarah again. One moment she was a shy girl. The next she was terrified, screaming. It was a mess. The knock on the table woke me. Ray brought my homeroom teacher. Makes sense. My parents are divorced, and neither gives a shit about me. Hard to reach. The teacher adjusted his thick glasses and told me to cooperate. Start talking the truth, Ray said, trying to use his bad cop voice. I nodded obediently. She hated my guts. She wanted to beat my ass on the roof. I was too scared to go. I was asking my teacher about a calculus problem at that time. What was the beef between you two? I don't know. Ask her. But I'm glad she's dead. Ray frowned. Maya, watch your mouth. I shrugged and let out a soft laugh. Chloe made my life hell. She poured ice water on me in the bathroom, stripped my clothes off behind the gym, tore up my homework, slapped my face, and made me kneel and beg. So yeah, I say she died at a good time. In my peripheral vision, Officer Miller's fists were trembling, his eyes bloodshot. I guess what I said matched exactly what was in Sarah's diary. The air was thick. I looked at the camera lens again. I felt like I was staring into a pair of dark, sinister eyes watching from the other side. Ray coughed.
Maya.
I blinked innocently, cutting him off. Officer, just because she's dead doesn't mean her sins are wiped clean. She was 18, an adult. Ray couldn't get anything out of me. I had a rock-solid alibi. They processed me, checked my injuries to confirm the bullying, and said they'd take me back to school. Principal Dean looked like he swallowed a lemon. He walked out with a dark face, my teacher trailing behind. As soon as we stepped out of the precinct, a swarm of reporters descended. Flashbulbs went off like strobe lights. Officer, regarding the student death at Oak Creek, is it suicide or homicide? Principal Dean, 2 students have fallen from your roof in 6 months. Any comments? Student, there are rumors the building is cursed. What do the kids think? Officer Miller shielded me from the vultures. Ray and Dean got stuck answering questions at the school gate. Miller looked at me with a complicated expression. He sighed, a heavy rattling sound. You're smart, kid, but you're young. He didn't finish, but I knew what he meant. I shouldn't have gotten myself involved in this mess. Miller is a tragic figure. Wife died, young. Daughter died in high school. Because I was Sarah's best friend. He believed me at first, but later, the evidence was too perfect. It contradicted my testimony. The cops thought I was traumatized, hallucinating. A month after Sarah died, Miller found me looking like a walking corpse. He said, Maya, study hard in the future. Look at the world for Sarah. But she should have been looking at it herself. Back in the classroom, Caleb was picking up my books from the floor. Chloe's little minion glared at me with pure venom, but turned away without a word. Caleb must have warned her.
He saw me.
You okay? I shook my head. I'm fine. The atmosphere in the school was suffocating. Oak Creek was a factory for Ivy League acceptances. With the recent deaths, the acceptance rate was dropping, and the teachers were tightening the screws. In our class, 2 people had died in 6 months. Nobody was smiling. I studied peacefully for a few days. Sometimes I'd catch Principal Dean staring at me through the back window of the classroom. Gloomy, silent. It wasn't over. Chloe's case wasn't closed. Weekend, I walked out of the school gates to buy supplies and saw Detective Ray leaning against his car and playing clothes. He turned, saw me, and waved. Officer, can I help you? I gripped my bag strap, playing the good student. He crushed his cigarette out and smiled. Not an interrogation, just wanted to chat. Ray bought 2 coffees and took me to the park next to the school. It was winter. The leaves were dead. I held the warm cup, looking at the thin ice on the lake. Officer, I told you everything I know. Maya, he said. My name. I contacted your parents. You haven't lived with them in a long time. You're on your own. I didn't answer. You called the media, didn't you? It wasn't a question. He instinctively reached for a cigarette, rolled it in his fingers, and put it back. You weren't avoiding the interrogation. You were waiting for me to come to you. I took a sip of my latte and looked at the dead leaves on the ground. You can trust the police, Maya. You don't need to play these games. Trust unconditionally the guy. Principal Dean called in as a favor.
Huh. Ray sighed.
I've applied to reopen Sarah's case. I froze.
So can we talk about Sarah now?
Silence stretched. I finished the last drop of coffee. Detective Ray, I have a question.
Shoot.
Why did Officer Miller accept the closed case back then? Why wasn't there a mandatory autopsy on Chloe? Why did Dean bring you specifically to investigate Chloe? He paused, then grinned. That's 3 questions. He wasn't going to talk deals off. I tossed the cup in the trash and turned around. Maya, was Sarah dating someone? The winter wind whipped across the frozen lake, biting at my cheeks. I stared at the thin sheet of ice, perfectly still, hiding the dark, suffocating depths beneath it. Dating. I repeated, letting the word roll off my tongue as if it tasted foreign. I turned to look at Detective Ray. His eyes were sharp, searching my face for a twitch, a break in the armor. Sarah was a ghost at Oak Creek, Detective, I said, my voice steady flat. She was brilliant, but invisible. The only thing she dated was her SAT prep book. If you're looking for a tragic teen romance angle to explain why she jumped, you're barking up the wrong tree. Ray didn't blink. I don't think she jumped, Maya. And neither do you. But I've been going through Sarah's phone records.
The ones the school tried to bury.
She had a lot of late-night calls with a prepaid number. A burner. I shoved my hands deep into my coat pockets, burying my fingernails into my palms to stop them from trembling. Maybe she was buying Adderall, I said coldly. Everyone at Oak Creek does. Ask Principal Dean, I'm sure he gets a cut. Ray chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. He didn't push further. He didn't need to. He had dropped the bait, and he was waiting to see if I would run to warn whoever was on the other end of those calls. Thanks for the coffee, detective, I said, turning away. I have calculus to study for. Some of us are still trying to survive this place. Watch your back, Maya, he called out as I walked away. The ice is thinner than it looks. I didn't look back. Monday morning, the school felt like a mausoleum. The silence in the hallways wasn't respectful, it was terrified. I walked into the chemistry lab, early as usual. The room smelled of bleach and old gas. Standing by the window, adjusting the valves on a Bunsen burner, was Caleb, the golden boy. His jaw was clenched, his perfect, Ivy League-ready posture slightly slouched. I locked the lab door behind me. The click echoed like a gunshot. He didn't turn around. Ray is sniffing around the burner phones, I said softly. Caleb's hands stopped moving. He slowly put down the wrench he was holding, the same wrench he had used 3 nights ago. He can't trace them. I bought them with cash 3 towns over, 2 years ago. He knows Sarah was seeing someone. Caleb finally turned. The golden boy veneer was entirely gone, replaced by a hollow, haunted look. Sarah and Caleb. The secret nobody knew. To the rest of Oak Creek, Caleb was untouchable, the heir to a tech fortune, destined for Stanford. Sarah was the scholarship kid, the quiet genius. If his parents had found out, they would have transferred him. If the school had found out, it would have been gossip fodder. But Chloe found out. Chloe, who had been obsessed with Caleb since freshman year. Chloe, who thought the world belonged to her because her daddy ran the school. Let Ray sniff, Caleb whispered, his voice cracking. He'll only find what Dean covered up. He'll find out Chloe cornered her. He'll find out Chloe killed her. Caleb, I stepped closer, lowering my voice. Chloe's phone. The text she sent me to meet her on the roof. Ray still has it. If he recovers the deleted drafts, if he sees the IP logs. I wiped her phone before I dropped it next to her body, Caleb said, his eyes darkening. It's untraceable. I used the campus network routing protocol to spoof the message, so it looked like she sent it to you. But in reality, she was up there because of my message. I closed my eyes, the memory of that morning flashing behind my eyelids. We hadn't laid a finger on Chloe Dean. That was the beauty of it. That was the only way we could get away with it. I had been in the classroom, asking my homeroom teacher a calculus question, establishing an airtight alibi. Caleb had been in the library, logged into the school computers. But the night before, Caleb had gone up to the 14th floor. The railing where Sarah was pushed was notoriously rusted, a safety hazard Principal Dean had ignored for years to save budget money. Caleb had used hydrochloric acid from this very lab to eat through the remaining oxidized iron on the bolts, then loosen them until the railing was hanging on by a whisper. The next morning, Caleb sent an anonymous text to Chloe. I have the video of what you did to Sarah. I taped it under the ledge on the roof. If you don't want the police to get it, go get it. Chloe, arrogant, panicked, and stupid, went to the roof alone. She walked to the exact spot where she had murdered my best friend. She leaned over the heavy metal railing to feel under the ledge. And the railing gave way. An unfortunate accident. We need to stay calm, I said, opening my eyes. Dean is looking for a scapegoat. He wants to nail me for it. He can't accept that his precious daughter died because of his own negligent maintenance. Dean is going to fall, too, Caleb said, his voice dropping to a terrifying, dead calm. He protected her. He paid off the witnesses. Harper, Mason, and Jess. They were all on the roof when Sarah died. They watched Chloe push her. One step at a time, I said. Harper is cracking. She hasn't slept since Chloe died. I think it's time we give her a little push. Harper was a nervous wreck. Without Chloe to hide behind, she was just a pathetic, shivering shadow. I found her in the girls' bathroom during 4th period, aggressively scrubbing her hands under the scalding water. I leaned against the doorframe, watching her through the mirror. You're bleeding, I noted. Harper jumped, nearly slipping on the wet tiles. She looked at her hands. She had scrubbed them raw. Her eyes darted to me, wide with a paranoid terror. Leave me alone, Maya. I'm not doing anything, Harper, I said, walking slowly toward the sinks. I turned on the cold water and washed my own hands. I just think it's funny. When Sarah died, you were laughing in the cafeteria the next day. But now, you look like you've seen a ghost. Shut up, she shrieked, backing against the bathroom stall. Did Chloe look scared when she went over? I asked conversationally, pulling a paper towel from the dispenser. Or was it fast? Like Sarah? I wasn't there. I don't know what you're talking about. But you were there for Sarah, I whispered, dropping the paper towel into the trash. I stepped into her personal space. She smelled of sweat and expensive vanilla perfume. You held her arms while Chloe hit her. Mason laughed. Jess recorded it. And then whoops, over the ledge. It was an accident. Harper sobbed, her hands covering her ears. Chloe didn't mean to. She just wanted to scare her. She was jealous of Caleb. I froze. My heart hammered against my ribs, but my face remained an impassive mask. My hand slid into my pocket, my thumb pressing down on the record button of the small digital audio device Caleb had given me. But Principal Dean told the police Sarah was alone. I pushed gently, my voice a soothing hum of poison. He gave you all those nice recommendation letters for Cornell in exchange for your silence, didn't he? We didn't have a choice, Harper wailed, sliding down the tiled wall until she was a crumpled mess on the floor. Dean said if we talked, he'd make sure we all went down for accessory to murder. We had to lie. We had to. Thank you, Harper, I said softly. I walked out of the bathroom, leaving her sobbing on the floor. I pulled the recorder from my pocket and stopped the recording. One down. Things escalated the next day. I was pulled out of AP Physics by the school security guard. The heavy silence in the hallway felt like a preamble to an execution. He escorted me to Principal Dean's office. When the oak doors swung open, my stomach dropped. Detective Ray was leaning against the bookshelf, his arms crossed. Principal Dean sat behind his massive mahogany desk, his face a mottled, ugly purple. And standing in the corner, staring a hole through the floor, was Officer Miller. Sit down, Maya, Dean snarled. I sat. I kept my posture straight, my expression pleasantly confused. We did a locker search this morning, Dean said, his voice trembling with barely suppressed rage. He pushed a clear plastic evidence bag across his desk. Inside was a heavy, industrial steel wrench, and a small, half-empty bottle of hydrochloric acid. My blood turned to ice, but I forced my breathing to remain steady. Caleb, you idiot. You said you got rid of it. But wait.
Caleb wouldn't be that stupid.
He threw the wrench into the river. This was a plant. Dean was framing me. Care to explain why these were found in the back of your gym locker, hidden under your uniform? Dean asked, leaning forward, his breath reeking of stale coffee and desperation. The exact tools used to sabotage the railing my daughter fell from? I looked at the bag. Then I looked at Detective Ray. I don't know what that is. Cut the crap. Dean slammed his fist on the desk. You murdered my daughter. You blamed her for that suicidal freak Sarah, and you tampered with the roof. Detective, I want her arrested right now. Hold on, Arthur, Ray said, his voice calm, but his eyes were drilling into me. Maya, did you put these in your locker? I haven't used my gym locker in 3 weeks because I was excused for a sprained ankle, I said smoothly. You can check the medical logs.
Anyone could have put that there.
Lies. Dean roared. She's a psychopath. Officer Miller, you know she's unhinged. She's been obsessing over Sarah's death for 6 months. Miller stepped forward from the shadows. His face was gaunt, the deep lines around his mouth carved by grief. He looked at the wrench, then at me. His eyes were unreadable pools of dark water. Actually, Arthur, Miller's voice was gravelly low. I checked the security footage from the gym hallway before coming in here. Dean froze. What? You authorized the locker search at 8 a.m., Miller said, pulling out a small tablet. But the cameras show your head of security, Mr. Vance, opening Maya's locker at 6:30 a.m. this morning, holding a duffel bag. When he walked away, the bag was flat. Silence descended on the room like an anvil. Dean's face went from purple to a sickening, chalky white. Ray pushed off the bookshelf, his demeanor instantly shifting from casual observer to a predator smelling blood. Is that true, Principal Dean? You had your security plan evidence. It's a mistake, Dean stammered, his bravado collapsing. Vance must have been doing a routine check. I don't like being played, Arthur, Ray said softly. He turned to me. Maya, you can go back to class. I stood up, adjusting my backpack. I looked at Dean, letting a slow, venomous smile creep onto my lips. Oh, by the way, Principal Dean, I think you should check your email.
I sent you a little audio file.
I accidentally CC'd the local news stations, the state education board, and the local precinct. It's an interview with Harper. Really eye-opening stuff about Cornell recommendation letters and accessory to murder. Dean choked, clutching his chest as if he had been shot. Ray pulled out his phone, his thumb flying across the screen. A second later, the audio from the bathroom began to play from a speaker, Harper's terrified voice filling the room. Chloe didn't mean to. She just wanted to scare her. We had to lie. Dean said he'd make sure we went down for accessory. Ray stopped the audio. The silence that followed was absolute. Arthur Dean, Ray said, pulling a pair of handcuffs from his belt. You have the right to remain silent. I didn't stay to watch him get cuffed. I walked out of the office, the heavy oak doors closing behind me. As I walked down the empty hallway, the sheer weight of the adrenaline left my body, making my knees weak. A shadow fell over me. Officer Miller had followed me out. Maya, he said. I stopped, turning to look at the man whose daughter had been the catalyst for all of this. Officer. He walked up to me, his heavy boots echoing on the linoleum. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, heavy object wrapped in a rag. He pressed it into my hand. It was cold. Metal. Next time you tell your boyfriend to get rid of a wrench, Miller said, his voice barely above a whisper. Tell him not to throw it in the shallow end of the river where the kids fish. My breath hitched. I stared at him, my heart pounding in my throat. He knew. He had found Caleb's real wrench. The one with the hydrochloric acid residue. The one that could have actually tied Caleb to the sabotaged railing. You. I couldn't form the words. My daughter slipped, Miller said, his eyes locking onto mine, shining with unshed tears and a terrifying, beautiful darkness. Chloe slipped. Accidents happen, Maya. It's a tragedy. All of it. He patted my shoulder, a heavy, fatherly weight. Study hard, kid. Look at the world for Sarah. She would have wanted you to. He turned and walked back into the principal's office, the door clicking shut behind him. I stood in the hallway alone, clutching the heavy wrench wrapped in the rag. A tear, a real one, spilled over my eyelashes and rolled down my cheek. I smiled. Epilogue. 6 months later. Oak Creek High's graduation was held on the front lawn. The sky was a brilliant, blinding blue. A lot had changed. Principal Dean was in federal prison, awaiting trial for a laundry list of charges including extortion, bribery, and covering up manslaughter. Harper, Mason, and Jess had their college acceptances revoked and were facing accessory charges. The school board had been entirely gutted, and Chloe's death was officially ruled a tragic accident due to structural negligence. The Dean family was countersuing the school district, a snake eating its own tail. I sat in the front row, wearing my blue cap and gown. The valedictorian was giving his speech. Caleb sat next to me. He looked older, tired, but the haunting shadow that had clung to him for a year was gone. He reached out, his fingers brushing against mine, hiding under the folds of our gowns. I intertwined my fingers with his. We made it, he whispered. Yeah, I replied softly. I looked up at the towering brick building in front of us. My eyes traced the lines of the windows, all the way up to the 14th floor. The roof. They had replaced the railing with a high, impenetrable chain-link fence. Nobody would ever fall from there again. I closed my eyes and let the warm summer sun wash over my face. I imagined Sarah sitting beside me, rolling her eyes at the valedictorian's cliché speech, whispering sarcastic comments in my ear. We got them, Sarah, I thought, gripping Caleb's hand tighter. We got them all. The crowd erupted into applause as the caps were thrown into the air, a sea of blue blocking out the sun. I didn't throw mine. I just sat there, breathing in the air, feeling the weight of the world, and for the first time in a long time, it didn't feel like it was crushing me. It felt like freedom.